All right. And so we've got a great team here with you today. We've got David Yates, Linda Bauer, Nancy Rucker, and I'm slipping in on that too. Talk to you about Super 2 events, and then we'll have that followed up with a training for any of the extension agents that are with us today on the new IAP and planning module in Super 2. So they can stick around and get a little bit of extra today. David, would it be all right if I showed that region website aspect real quick? We've had a lot of the county and also the region websites moving over to the new WordPress site. And so we wanted to show you while we're all together today, one quick thing about how to get to our internal SharePoint website. So if you just go to eastern.tennessee.edu, you'll see the new region website, just like the same website as before, same address, different website. Looks similar, but the key is to get to our internal pages for training and assignments, county director, calendars, and all those kind of things. We've got to go and click on this little black circle with the 3 white dots across it. And so if you click there, it gives you an option to click on faculty and staff login. And so when you do that, it takes you right into a place that you're very familiar with. So that's how you get to there. And then you can find assignments, the 4-H pipeline, training resources, county directors, all the things you usually look for. But one more thing that is housed there that you may not think about is the calendar for the region that has all the in-service training and region events and other major events that impact a good number of folks in the Eastern region. And that's still there in a format very similar to what it was, but you won't find this on the region homepage anymore. So we wanted to just take a second. This just happened last week, and we've been finding where everything's at, and wanted to make sure you all knew that. So again, just go to the Eastern region page, and then faculty and staff login with that black circle with the 3 dots. All right, I'm going to step out of that. And let's see. One other thing I'll mention real quick, just in case we upload this recording, if you're watching the recording, please email Kim Spangler afterward to receive the in-service credit for this training in Super. And otherwise, it looks like we're ready to roll. And I think Linda's going to kick it off with the events.
Well, good afternoon. Again, it's good to see everybody. I always like being on when I can see everybody's faces. So we're really excited to go through Super events with you. I've been on the Super 2.0 development team for multiple years, and this was the group I was assigned. So looks very different than when we first started. So we're really excited to talk to you about it. So we want to talk about what we use events for. Of course, this is the old training registration. So that is in the past. We're now using events. We want you to use it for county events, multi-county events. You know that we use it for all of our judging team competitions. We use it for camps. We use it for in-service training. We use it for regional events. We use it for state events, and then multiple others that we probably can't remember today, but there are multiple events that we use this for. And so it's very versatile. This has been streamlined from the previous one, all on one page. So we're really happy about that. I want to talk about what events should be used for. So in the past, we have said that all of our fee-based programs should be in what is now events, and that is still true. So if you are doing any fee-based program, it needs to be an event created in Super 2.0. Now, what we are doing, and the reason our program assistants are on here, is we are asking everyone when you are doing a face-to-face event, we want you to put it in Super 2.0 events. And that is the ability for contact tracing. It's an event that you would be creating, you would be hosting, UT Extension is hosting. This is not if you go to a club and speak to them, or a group asks you to come and do a talk for them. That's their issue. But if you are organizing a class, an event, and it's going to be even partially face-to-face, then it needs to be in Super 2.0 events. And we'll talk about as we go through how it's tied to enrollment and delivery, but this is, for now, this is what we're going to do. That could change in the future, but we are, of course, I don't think any of us know that. So please note that if you are doing any face-to-face event, it needs to be put into events in Super 2.0. It can be used for if you have programs, classes, events where you need a definite count. You know, we've done this a lot for, like, if we were having a meal and we were having it catered, which we're not really doing now, but if you need a definite count, if you're doing any kind of county event, multi-county events, and it says here, not every event needs to be an event. Now, that is true, except for right now, every face-to-face event has to be in Super 2.0 events. Okay, so hopefully you're clear on that every face-to-face event right now, if you're organizing it, and then you need to do that. We had a question this morning about if you're going into a club meeting, okay, if you're doing 4-H clubs, because agents are going into schools and doing clubs, that's the school's responsibility. You do not have to create an event for going into 4-H clubs, because you're being invited into that school. But if you're doing a project group after school, or if you're doing you know, a judging team practice that's being organized and conducted by you or a volunteer, then yes, you would do that. And again, if it's, we had a question this morning about, well, what if some of the people were face-to-face and some were virtual? Put them all in. Okay, you might have a question in there when we get to questions. Are you attending face-to-face or virtual? But any face-to-face event needs to be in this module.
And at this point, does that count as 10-step classes if we're going in teaching? If we're doing
I can't hear you very well, so you need to speak closer to your microphone.
This is Lucy. For 10-step classes, do we use this for 10-step classes?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. That's why all of you and the program assistants are on. And because this is something new for program assistants, we've not asked them to do that, but yes. Okay, David. So to register someone for an event or a session, they must be enrolled in the Super Enrollment module. They work in tandem. Now, most of you have been trained, agents and administrative assistants have been trained in Super Enrollment. Program assistants, if you have not been trained in Super Enrollment, there is a training on TT&T that goes through the Super Enrollment module, and plus your county director, your lead agent, your administrative assistant can help you with that to get these people enrolled in Super, and then you can put them into an event or a session, and you'll learn about what those are as we go through. The really great thing about enrollment, events, and now delivery, they all work together. And someone's going to show you that there's a great button now in Super 2.0 events, so that if you put an event in and you register people and you mark them attended, there's this really nice button that says export to delivery, and it automatically sends it to your delivery. And you don't have to go back and re-enter it. Now, I thought that was great, because that's one step eliminated rather than having to go back and put it back in. So they've done a really good job to do that. So it has, but they all work together in this. And the hope is that this is going to streamline how we do things. Okay, I think
All right.
Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay, go Nancy.
Thanks, Linda. Thank you. When you are in Super 2.0, you can go into events, and the box there over to the right on the screen gives you the 3 choices. So you have My Events, Search Events, or Create Event. So we will go in just in a few minutes and take a look at those. But in events, you can search events, so you can self-register for an event, such as an in-service or training. If there's an event going on, you can create an event, whether that be a county or multi-county event, and we'll go through those guidelines as well. Register clients for an event, so that could be by an individual or group registration. So we will show you how to do that. So if you have a project group that's continually meeting, or some type of group registration that you have managed to add them to Super as a group, then there's some opportunities there that you can do that, register them as a group. And then managing an event, so where there's attendance, to make sure to mark that, and then the export to delivery, as Linda referred to as well. In the next part, when we go in and select events and search events, this is what the screen, the top of the screen looks like. So everything is on one long screen. So first we start with the date range. So you see there's a 1 month date range. So if we went in today, it would have today's date into November of today, or the same date. And then there's event type, and that information will be listed, and all those are drop downs. So you can search, you need the 2 asterisks are there for the date range, so you could search that way. And then if you want to drill down, you can choose excuse me, you can choose from all the different selections there as well. So if you want to search by base program or by unit, instructor, event status, all those different things. And then once you put or make those selections, you want to go over to get events. And so when you hit get events, all the different events that are listed are there. Or if you need to reset, it didn't show up, you could reset the event, change the date range, and any of the other things that need to be changed, you can choose from those as well. Then if we do the search results, that shows up, and you see our screen at the top. It has 1 to 10 of the 57 entries. Ours shows 3 here for the example. So if there's something that you want to search for that you think is in that grouping, you can begin by typing a word in, and it'll pop up in the search box as well. But the ones that show up, you have a title, the sessions listed, if there are multiple sessions, how many people are registered, what sessions they are, and then a start date, end date, training type. And then the main thing is the view and register. So this gives you an opportunity, and at the bottom it says click, view, register to open. So once we click those, it'll give you more information about the event itself, and also an opportunity for you to register there. So this is what the next screen at the top looks like. Again, there's a long screen here that you would scroll down, and this would have the session that's listed. It says checking in Zoom webinar, and the dates are noted, the enrollment. If you have extension instructors or non-extension instructors, those would be listed as well that are there. Any type of description, the contact hours, and so on. There are 3 choices that you have here with regards to registration. You can register self, which means I would register for that training. I can register a coworker. If somebody forgets to register, or something's happening, they're on their way and I need to register them quickly, you can go in and locate them in the system and register that person. Or you can register a client, and the client would be someone who is enrolled in Super as one of our clients. Ty, this is yours.
Looking for my unmute button. Thank you, Nancy. So as you go into actually create your own county or multi-county event, we're going to give you an example here. The first thing there is you're going to put in your title, and then we've got training type. And so, usually for most of us, that's going to be a county or sometimes a multi-county event. This does give you all an option to enter other types of events, including in-services. And there may be an occasional situation where someone needs to do that if you're on a leadership team or something along those lines, but it's a pretty rare event. And we just ask you to look carefully at those as you're choosing it. And if you are entering an in-service, it has to go through an approval process. So let the region program leader that would be responsible for that know, so they could be looking for that. Then on to delivery method. And we have 3 choices listed here: face-to-face, video conference, or web-based. In the update, I think they also added 4-H camp as a delivery method. So you may see that now as you're kind of typing around in there. You might wonder, why do we have video conference and web-based? They're very similar. And so, if you're only doing something that's maybe Facebook Live and you're not interacting, that might land on web-based. But a lot of the things we do probably leans more towards the video conference option there. So we'll just let you choose the one that fits best with what you're doing. One thing we talked about earlier is that if you happen to be doing some kind of a drive-in type of event, we would still consider that face-to-face. We may not be exactly face-to-face with everybody, but we're at the same location. So it would be considered face-to-face and not virtual, even though it is an adapted face-to-face. So participant fee is a required box, and you see all the red asterisks indicate the required boxes. So if there's no fee, you can actually select or type in 0, and that's all you have to type, just a 0, and that'll cover it. And then if you do have a fee for the course, you can go ahead and put it there. We're going to come back and discuss the fee issue just a little bit later when we get into sessions. Then we have registration deadline. And in the past, whenever a registration deadline on an in-service or other types of events had to be changed, it had to be a special request to John Toman for the administrator to be able to do that. And now we have lots of flexibility to edit our own events anytime. And so that'll be a little bit easier if something slips by and we need to change some dates or allow more participants into our classes to let the waiting list in and those kind of things. We do need to put a description, and that's basically what you want to put there to describe your event. And then the last box says funding, and that's not required, but you have the option to use that box if it's helpful to you to list maybe the sponsors of the event or other things about how the funding is coming together. But primarily that's for your benefit more than anything else. And then most of the funding that we will see that maybe relates to performance appraisals and things is going to come through profile, or maybe here through the user fee or participant fee that we listed at the top. All right, David, I think we're good there. So this is all going to be on one page. And so you're just going to scroll down, and this is the next thing below that main area. And we've got some filters that we're going to use to kind of nail down what area our event lands in. And so we've got to select base program, and then we'll select a knowledge area and then a topic. And so we'll try to be as close and specific as we can be to whatever the event is. And then you do have the option to come over and select keywords. And that's just if there is a keyword that applies to that. And a lot of times with events, there will not be a keyword that needs to be associated with it, but you'll probably know if one of those keywords does apply and you can select it. Then we have a state action agenda, and that's not required, but I think that if you have an event that lands in that's associated with your plan, then you want to make sure and select that and associate it with the action agenda in particular, so that just to make sure that it gets accounted for in delivery with your plan programs. If it's not part of your plan, then it's optional to select that, and it will just land under your base program, we believe. So we're still figuring all of this out a little bit as the first group tries this out. So we'll probably learn a little bit more about all those things as we go along. Then we have sessions. This is the one thing that might seem a little more complicated than before, but there's a reason behind it. And so at least one session has to be added for every event we create in Super. And then some events may have more than one session, but we have to have a session associated with a class or event in Super. So we're going to jump in and look at that. And so it looks a little redundant, but if you just have one session for an event, then you could put in the same title. You could even put in the same description there. But under session, it asks for some more specific information. So we have a maximum enrollment, and you can set it at a certain amount. Later on, you can go back and make it larger if you have a waiting list and make adjustments. But anybody that's not within that enrollment number and that registers later will go automatically onto a wait list until you do something to adjust that enrollment. So then we have a participant fee. So this is where we could talk a little bit more about how sessions work with events. The fee here, if you just have one class and you've already said there's maybe a $20 fee in the main events page, and there's no additional fee, then we just put a 0 there. But if you have maybe I'm thinking of maybe like a gardening series, and people can pick and choose which ones they want to come to. And maybe there's a different fee for each one. Maybe they get some plants to take home in one of them and you charge a higher fee. Then you can actually put a 0 on your events registration fee, and then have a specific fee that goes along with each session individually. If they pay extra for one of the sessions and the other sessions are free, you can account for that here and add that extra fee for a session. So it gives us a lot of different ways to account for things. But I think in most of our programs, we're just going to put a fee on that first page that we looked at just a minute ago. And then a lot of times this is going to be 0. But again, it gives us extra flexibility. So your contact hours is standard like we've done before, how long your class lasts, and you've got a start date and an end date. We've got description and location. So very straightforward there, no surprises. That's pretty similar to what we've had. Down below, you've got the option to add instructors. And so on the left, we have internal instructors from the UT system. You can select from a county or a region or a department if you have a specialist coming in, and then select that person down below. And then on the right, if you have an external instructor, then you can mention who that is. It won't necessarily have anything that happens associated with that person in Super, but that just shows what's happening. And so this is great for delivery, because if you have, let's say for an example, a lot of people are doing producer classes right now. If they were in the county or in multi-county classes, you might have one speaker the first session, and you can account for that in session one. And then you might have a different speaker. It might even be you in the second session. And so it allows you to break those up by session and actually, in advance, get those contacts to the right person after it happens. And you can just have to do that in events and not have to do it later on in delivery. And we can just export that. All right. So now we're
I have a question real quick.
sure.
Like when we did the multi-county project celebration day under the old delivery, session 1 would have a time like 10 to 11, and there might be 30 different classes because we select the one the child chose. Session 2 could have 30 different classes. So we have a potential when we do that we have to enter 90 classes, 30 for each. Will the new system allow us to still do that? The other one did it by a time.
Yes. So I think that the approach would be you might have 90 if it's 30 times 3, and maybe what you call the first 30 sessions are session 1, and then list the topic. And then the next, the 31 to 60 might be session 2, and then list the topic. And you'd have to just go through and select the ones that you want. And it would work fairly similar to those sub events that we had before. So Connie, does that help to answer your question?
Maybe, I guess we'll have to play with it. And I'm assuming that if you did that session 1 to 30, there would be drop down buttons, or would the agent have to type the class or the session each time?
Well, so you would see all of the sessions available, and you would just check mark the ones that you were putting the participants in. So you'd see them all on a list going down the page, and you just check off the 3 that you're putting your participant in if they can only register for 3.
And we're going to do a demonstration too, so you'll be able to see that. And then Kelsey had a question, is there a limit to the number of sessions? I don't think so. I think you can create the one event like archery and then have multiple sessions under there. That way you only have to do the one event and enter that.
So there was a question, is there a way to copy sessions? And that would be great. And David, I can't remember. We asked them to add that feature. And when we go to the live demo, let's see if it's there. But does anybody remember if we have that?
I think it had to where it would let us duplicate an event, but I don't recall that on a session.
Okay. I know we asked for it, so it might happen. It might just not be there now. So we'll hope for that and check on the live demo.
Let's remember to look for that, but that's a note that we would need to make.
Okay.
Like
So,
with co-parenting, you could put in like one event would be co-parenting for 2021, and then you could do each event, one event, but the different sessions, and it would be very helpful to be able to copy a session. And the same with Kelsey's if she was doing archery every week rather than having to recreate.
Yeah. So it gives us a lot of flexibility that might actually make things a little bit smoother as we enter things and a little easier to track, but just a little differently. So as we're setting up this event, the last option here is if we want to have an event question. And that is optional. You don't have to have any questions. The question might be something as simple as, do you have any special dietary needs? Just so we make sure if we're providing a meal that we account for that for anybody. And you can actually have more than one question. You can keep adding questions with that blue button there on the right. If you add a question, you see that you have the red asterisk. So it is a required thing for anybody that registers. They have to respond to that, and they can respond to different types of questions. David will show you that in the demo. But as long as you leave the question, if you don't add a question, then there's no required to answer that question because there's not a question to start with. There's a red trash can there. So if you start to add a question and decide not to, you just hit that button and it deletes the question. The one interesting thing is if you add more than one question, the only question you can delete is the most recent one you added. So it'll be, if you've added 3 questions, question 3 is the only one you can delete. So if you have to go back to the first question, you may have to delete a couple to delete that one. Once you complete this process, you're going to go ahead and hit create, and then your event is just about ready to go. Now, after you create it, this is the My Events page, and that shows you your facilitated courses and events. And before it's officially ready to be registered for, we do have to take one more step and hit that yellow button that says Edit Event. And when we go there to edit the event, we're going to click Submit, the green button, and that makes the event live for everybody to see. So you can create an event and have it sitting there ready for when you're really ready to roll it out, or you can just go through all this process right away and it'll be ready to go. The great
Now,
thing,
remember, Ty, in the demonstration, when we did the live one this morning, it went straight to this page.
okay, good. That's much
So
better.
it went straight to this. And then the other thing is if you are doing a county event or a multi-county event, when you submit it, it's automatically approved. It doesn't have to go through any other approval process. That's what it's been before.
Right.
So
Good. I was answering some text chats this morning. I may have missed that, but that's
yeah, it was in the, we went through this, but when we got to the demonstration and he hit create event, it went straight to this page and didn't go through that other page. And we think that we were in testing before, so.
good deal.
And super.
So one of the great things about this is you can edit those events anytime. So just keep that in mind, and David will show you that in the live demo. It's very easy to do that. So once you submit the event, you'll get this notification on your on the website, and you know that it's ready. So I think at this point, David Yates is going to take over.
We've been using this in the development phase of it, and there have been a couple of things because it actually went live today, all of it, to where we can use it. So a couple of things, just keep that in mind as we go through. So we've gone through the process and we've created the event. We've got that done. Now we need to start putting people into that particular event. So how do we do that? So what you're going to do is, and we'll go through it on the live demonstration of it, but we need to get back to the event that you created or that someone else in your office has created or someone in another county has created. And we need to register participants for it. So when we go in and we find that event, and you'll only see this after it's been approved, there are 4 icons listed with each different event. And we're going to look at the green one. And that green one is the register participants. When we come in and we register a participant, we're going to find out we can do it differently depending on who we are, who the person is, what situation that we're actually in. So if you're looking to register a client for a different event, you're going to click on the blue register client button first, and then you're going to have 2 choices. You can either import them from a client list. We'll show how that works. And then you can also select it from your enrollee list. Now, your enrollee list is just for your county. Okay. So you can't register for someone from another county by going in, you know, and searching for them. You can only see your county information. When you click on the search from after the select from enrollee list, it's going to come in and it's going to give you a list of all the enrollees in your county. You'll have a search button, so you can go in and type in a first name, a last name, a partial part of it. It will go through, it will pull that down, and you'll be able to pick one person from that list by selecting the little circle icon next to them. And then at that point, it'll say you're ready to register the client, and that'll be down below it. You'll get a pop-up window that says, are you sure you want to complete this task? And it does remind you about questions. And questions are great. And there's a new process in our new super that allows you to register a whole group of people at one time. If you're registering individual people at a time, you can answer the questions for those individuals. If you choose to register a group of people at one time and you have a question, that probably isn't going to work so well. So it does give you that reminder. It talks about, reminds you about questions, you know, and if you don't do that, you're going to get an error message. But if you came through, there were no questions, additional questions to ask, you click that register button again, and you'll get the little green check mark. You've successfully registered for the event, whatever it happens to be. Now, you can also come in and instead of doing one person individually at a time, which again, that may make sense in a lot of cases, but there's other times, wouldn't it be nice if that we could come in and register people from a list? Now, maybe that list doesn't have every person that's going to register for this event, but it has a whole bunch of them. Thinking about what if you were creating an FCE event, you know, and there's a number of people that will register for it, but not everybody. You could come in and bring up your client list for your FCE club, countywide. Then you can pick and choose those people that you would like to register for that event. So the way this is going to work is that you have different groupings that you can come in and search by. So if you're very familiar with enrollment, you're going to see that these enrollment detail drop-down box is the same thing that you've been looking for when you're assigning clubs, activities, awards, events, and things in 4-H a lot of times. So you can come in, pick the top that you're looking for, and then from that, you would pick the particular one or multiples and then say get list. When you get your list, it'll show down below your results. That list will be there. You're going to have a button at the bottom that you can click on to where you can select or deselect all of them. Well, if everybody needs to register for this except 3 people, I would probably say select them all, and then I could individually click the 3 people who weren't going to register. Or think of it just in reverse. Here's a list of 20 people, but I really needed to find those 4 people that were going to register. I can look through that list and click on those 4 names. When you make your selections and have highlighted those individuals, you'll come down to the bottom and click on your green register client button. And that's then going to register those clients into your particular event or session. Excuse me. So when we're doing the group registration, a new feature involved in this, we need to keep a couple of things in mind. If there are questions, they have to be answered before the registration is complete. And we would suggest, if possible, that you probably want to avoid questions if you're doing a group registration. It makes things a lot easier. You're probably going to end up doing a lot of back and forth if you have a group registration with questions, and it may or may not always work. So keep that in mind. If you do have those individual questions that you put in there, probably want to do the client registration where it's one at a time. So we've got people enrolled into your event. Okay. Then what do we do with it? Well, we can then come in and look at managing our event participants. So again, going back to the event that you've created, typically going to the My Facilitated Events tab or button will get you there. Find the particular event. And again, you see those 4 icons that are listed. We're going to the third one over that looks like a clipboard. And that's your manage event participants. Now, when we look at managing our participants, this is where the real power starts to come into things. You're going to be able to come in, and after you've marked these participants as attended, you're going to find that there's a green button up at the top right that says export to delivery. And it's going to send all of your information into delivery. In order for it to do that, we need to look a little bit further down the page. We're going to look at 2 places. And when you're managing your participant events, as you scroll down the page, you're going to see the one section that talks about your event roster, and it's going to have the information about, is the person paid or not paid? And this is the same thing that we had under a classic super, where we could come in and mark a person that they were paid or not paid. That way we can come in and generate those lists. You know, here's the list of the people that still owe money at the time of the session. Export that to Excel, print that out, and here's the list. And when Tom comes through and it's like, oh, Tom, you still owe us the balance, or you still owe us the whole part, whatever it would be. Also, as you keep, again, scrolling down the page, looking at the bottom, and this is the part where we talk about, have they attended? And the couple of things that you can see here is that you can also add a participant to the session. You'll have that option from within the manage the participants. You can also come in and mark all the people that have registered that they've attended. You can go individually down that list and click the little checkbox for people being attended. If you have someone that you see on the list and it's like, well, they didn't attend, Angie called and said she couldn't make the meeting, etc. At this point, you can also unregister somebody for an event. So you have a lot of power and a lot of options under managing your participants that we've never had before. We were pretty much, you could either, you attended or you paid. You had those 2 check boxes, and that's really all you could do with it. So you can go in and add somebody, mark them as attended, mark them as paid, and you could also unregister somebody from an event. So lots to do under the managing that particular event. The last icon that you'll see is being able to view the full roster. Well, why would I even care about this? Well, a few examples that I can think of is that when you view the full roster, again, it's coming out. You can look at it. It's going to export it as an Excel file. You can do that by the little X icon that's right up above it. But being able to view this full roster, that shows you all your participants, everybody in the list. Being able to export that out also gives you the ability is that, you know, we're off site, you know, doing the session, doing the classes, doing the camp, etc. This could be your sign-in sheet. These are the people that registered, bringing this out into Excel, deleting some columns, changing the column height. You then can create a list to where the person can sign their name beside, you know, verification that they came. This could also be where you can come in and pull out those checklists. Okay, here's the list of everybody that came. Well, if it's 4-H, has, you know, which kids have turned in their 600A form. These have had their loss check. You know, these are the ones that are going on bus A versus bus B. You know, anything like that. Once you have those names and that information within this event, there's a lot more that we can do with it, more than just attended or paid, but some of those extra things that we would do. If you've already captured the information, why should you have to recreate that list again and again? So viewing that full roster, two parts of it, either by clicking the little, it's sort of a clipboard with writing on it. That will give you the roster within Super. And then by clicking on, and we've got a list of them there, it'll show however many entries you have. Or you can then go in and export that into Excel. All of those, again, comes back into, once you get the information in, you shouldn't have to recreate and redo this, that there's so much in Excel that you can send it off to and being able to manage the data that way. So at this point, we want to stop. I see there's questions in chat. I'm hoping that Linda and Ty and Nancy, we're looking at those and we can start to address those before we go into the live demo.
So one of the questions was, do you have to enter each session separately? Like for a class that meets over a period of months, do you need to have each individual session under the class event? And I think that may be a little bit different for each kind of a group that you work with. But in general, we like the idea of having each session listed. Linda, is there a time where we wouldn't want to list sessions? And maybe y'all can give us some examples of what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if we could get where you could duplicate the sessions, I think that would be good because it shows the different sessions that you're doing. You know, if you're doing a class like the Lamanda's doing the Mediterranean eating, I'll get that out. You know, those are 4 distinct different sessions. So I might create 4 sessions for that. You know, if it's the same thing every time, if we could get to that duplicate, I would do it. It just shows that scope of what you're doing. I did.
And then we had the question from Meg, do 10-step classes that are being done by Zoom or Google Meet have to be entered as an event, or is it just face-to-face? So if you're meeting virtually, then it's not a requirement for COVID tracking to enter it as an event. But if it's an educational program, you have the option to enter those.
I have a-
Definitely required for face-to-face. And
I have a question.
Go ahead, Nancy.
I'm wondering, and I'm not sure who knows this, but on if we have multiple sessions that are going to run in from 2020 to 2021, should we split those up because of super? Because we may not export those numbers until after 2020 as far as submitting that. I'm just wondering.
I would think so because it separates them by calendar year. So I would think you would do like all you would do your events through the end of 20 if you have some, and then do 2021 because that way you see them all. And then Elizabeth Hobbs asked, will it export delivery for all agents listed? If they are listed as a facilitator, if you're the facilitator, and if you're listed as an instructor, you will have the ability to export that to delivery. So yes, when you're doing like sub-region public speaking and you list all the agents, then they will be able to.
Each agent that's listed a facilitator has to go in to export it.
Linda,
Now, wait a minute, Anastasia, then we'll get back to you. Go ahead and say that again, David.
Each person that's listed as the facilitator has to go in and export it to their own delivery.
And instructor.
Yes.
Yeah, you just said facilitator. So if you're a facilitator or an instructor, you have to go in and export it. Yes. Okay, Anastasia.
will it export into our delivery in our plans or in our base programming?
Originally,
Can we choose?
Originally, it was going into base programs, but we talked to them about giving you that option to put it into your plan. And I don't know, Ty or Nancy, David, do you know? I
So-
don't know.
I think with the new plan in Super 2.0 going into 2021, that will connect, that we'll have that ability, but we can't show it yet because we don't have any Super 2.0
There
plans.
you go.
So
There
stay
you go.
tuned to January, and there should be a button or something, some way to be able to connect that. So I think it's
Okay.
coming. We just haven't got all the super
Yeah.
modules caught up to us yet.
So for 2020, Anastasia, if you have any from now to the end of the year, the answer would be no. But 2021, it'll be good.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So just to help clarify a little bit, we had this question in the morning session. And so when it comes to the COVID tracking and all that, and that's why we're putting more events in super events, especially asking program assistants to do that. If you are the host of an event and you're organizing it and planning it, then that's something we're expected to do if it's a face-to-face meeting. If you are just being invited into a meeting, maybe you're going into a school to do a 4-H club meeting, or you're invited to go talk at to a civic group or whatever kind of group it might be. If it's not our own meeting, then that group is responsible for the COVID tracking. So we don't have to list everybody that was in that meeting or everybody that was in that 4-H club in-school meeting in an events roster, because that's a little bit different situation. But when we are responsible fully for that event, then that's where we want to make sure that we do list everybody that was there face to face.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit earlier too.
Just
Lacey, the demographics, there's no demographics here because events, see, I'm gonna get that training registration. Events is tied to enrollment. So when you enroll a person, you have to put their demographics there. So when you export it into delivery, it takes their demographics and puts it into your delivery. So you do not have to go back in and separate the numbers into demographics.
So that's another thing we don't have to do. It's automatic. So that's great.
Elizabeth asked, when you export to delivery, do you do it by the whole event or can you do it by session individually?
And that is by session.
by session.
And only by session.
So you'll see that, Elizabeth, in the, he'll show that in the, when we do the live demonstration here. So those are great questions. And there's no bad questions. Is there any others before he does the live delivery? I mean, live, goodness gracious. Live events thing. I can't keep them straight.
I have one more question to clarify. If it's an organized Zoom meeting, do we still enter it as the type, the video conference type? I mean, if we still have people registering in Zoom, just change the
You
type?
can do it web-based or video conference, whatever works.
But
for
we
you.
still need to enter it though,
Well, and this is the reason
face
that
to face.
why it's important to enter these is because any of those that you enter and you enroll people and you mark them attended, it's going to show up in your profile and it's also going to show up in your performance appraisal. So you don't have to go back and add things that you are not showing up. So it's a good practice to go in and put those people in and make these in
Okay. All right, thank you.
events.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
the only ones that are totally required are if they're fee-based. And now the face-to-face ones, but it's a good practice.
The same applies with 10-step program assistants also. The same, what you just told me.
Well, yeah, but theirs are doing more because their numbers are being shown other places. So they're more for contact tracing at this point.
Oh.
We've never asked them to do this.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
Great questions.
Okay, are we ready to dive into Super 2?
Let's go.
And here we are. I'm already logged into Super. And where we're going to go in and find our events is under the Events tab. If you click the drop down, you're going to see that you have 3 different options that you can look at. You come down and select My Events. You will come back to this page. It's got 6 different tabs or sections on it. You can view the events that you have registered for. You can view the events that you are facilitating. These are the ones you create. You can view the ones that you're listed as an instructor. You'll see where you have your completed events. We'll come back to this later. And if you've got events that go through the approval process, you'll see those there. And then you can see your client events to be able to get into all of that. We can come in and we can then search an event. And what we want to look at from here is a note that Ty found out last week was that this year there's not going to be an official list of all in-service trainings for 2021. So in order to find, the statewide type in-service events, you're going to have to go into Super 2 and you're going to have to find those. So how could we go in and do that? So I came in and selected search events from the drop-down tab up at the very top. And the first and only thing that's required are the 2 red asterisks, and that's your start and end date. So if I wanted to look for all in-service trainings for 2021, when I click on the calendar, notice it gives you 3 months worth, and then you can advance it or go backwards. I'm going to select January 1, 2021. That's my beginning date. And then my ending date. And I can always type that in, or I can use that calendar. And I'm going to search to the end of December of 2021. Under event type, I would come in and select in-service. I can narrow this down by unit if that's been put in. Now again, maybe not. I'm just going to pick Eastern Region. Again, type and unit were not required, but it makes a lot of sense. For this example, it needs to be in service. I could also come in and I could select these and find out, okay, these are the 4-H youth development ones. These are the ag and natural resources, family consumer sciences. I could do any of those if I wanted to. I can then, with my options that I've picked so far, I come in and say get events. And then scroll down the page. Looks like I've got 14 pages of events going on here. I can look at any of these events. I get a thumbnail information about them. Also notice that for each one of these columns, I now have the option to where I can sort these alphabetically, either A to Z or Z to A. And also I can do the dates by closest date to furthest date out and vice versa. So I'm going to come in and just use their little tiny up and down arrows. And I see alphabetically, second annual Mid-South Ag Trade Conference is the first thing that is listed. I can come in and change the session, that information. I can come in and change the dates. So there's one for 12/16 of 2021. And the first one is January the 12th, 2021. All of these are in service because that's what I've picked. Come into any of those. And then for any of these, and I can come in and use the search bar up here at the top too. Look for any that have 4-H in it.
And you can filter that up at the top, like just choosing 4-H or.
I could choose my base program as 4-H, resubmit that. So multiple ways to get to the same result. But any of these that you search for, you can then click on the blue View Register Information. That's where it's going to give you more information about the event, how it's being delivered, the description. Again, the different things about program areas, groups, topics, and all that. It's giving you your date information, the deadline date information. We keep scrolling down. If there's a cost, how long, who the facilitator or the instructor is going to be. And again, your information, and this is your information for that. And the word is just escaped me right now. What's the word I'm looking for? Session. That's it. And there's the information about the session, and then where you can come in, and if it's an in-service, you would be self-registering or you're registering a coworker. But this would work whether take the in-service part of it out and say, you know, this is for an accounting event or some multi-county events or any of that. We come in and we search the same way. It's just, what are we searching for? and how refined do you want to make that search. When you find it, you click on it, and then you can do the registration. When someone has registered for the event, it's going to show you those names down below at the bottom. So any questions about the searching? You're going in to search for something that's already in the events module. Okay, let's come in and go under events, click the drop down again, and let's create an event. So you're creating an event. You are now becoming the facilitator of the event. We've asked that anytime that you create an event, please put your county name as the beginning portion of that. We've seen too many times that there's co-parenting, master beef producer, and it's like until you click at least to open it once and further down into it, you may not know, well, that's something in West Tennessee, or that's something that's not in my county. It's not what I'm looking for. So putting your county name as the first thing, or putting in Eastern Region or ER. We're going to select the type of training. And again, most of yours will probably be county or multi-county. We're going to select this as county. And then we see under delivery method, they did update this in the production version to include 4-H camp, along with face-to-face, video conference, and web-based. We're just going to say this is going to be video conference. If there is a participant fee for the entire event, we can type that dollar amount in here, or we're just going to say there's no cost to this. When I come in and click the registration deadline, what's going to pop up here is a calendar to where you can then click on the date. And registration deadline also has a date and a time. So then we would say, okay, by the end of the day on Friday or Saturday the 31st, when you click on the hour, notice the hours come up here. You don't have to always type those in. And then under minutes, they're listed in 5-minute increments. So by doing a few clicks here and there, you get all that. Click back on. That always, the little, it's sort of like a compass type thing. That will always take you to today's date. In today's date, we'll have this little half triangle that's listed by it, just to show you that. I click back on the calendar icon or just off of it, and it captures that information. I have to put in a description. Then you have funding. We scroll down. We see we have our filters, and this is based on base programs, so we can choose one or multiple base programs. I'm going to say this is 4-H and Ag and Natural Resources. I can click one or multiples, then click close. Populates that in. The knowledge areas, positive development, youth development, home garden, and what topic, we're going to say 4-H science. I can add keywords if I need to. You should notice those keywords should look very familiar. Where will we capture those from? Delivery. If those apply, we use those. If not, just take them out. Don't use that. And then under state action agenda, if you want to tie this to one of the state action agendas, those will be listed there too. All right. We've got 2 of them done, 1 more required. And then we come down to sessions and we see each of these are just drop downs that collapses and opens up. So it's collapsed now. So we want to open up sessions. At least 1 session must be added for each event. So when we come in and we open up the sessions, we see that we have the session 1, we have the trash can to where we could delete it, but we have to give it a title. This could be the same title, or if this was a multi-session thing, you could, give it, this is session 2 of co-parenting, session 1 of co-parenting. This is the January.
Master gardeners.
Yeah, Master Gardeners. This is, Kelsey was talking about archery. This is the January deal of archery or whatever. You have to give it a maximum enrollment. Now, is there a participant fee? This is what Ty was talking about. We scroll back up here at the top, we said for the entire event, we're charging 0 fee. We can come down and then for each session, we can create an individual fee. So this would be, if you wanted each session, if it was to have an individual fee, they were different. Or if there's really, it's just where do you want to capture? If you're going to have multiple sessions and there is a cost, that's probably going to be in the session where you would capture that. If this is one big section and everybody pays, 1 price overall, you can put it up at the top under the event. It depends on where you need to capture this information. And the same thing, notice that up at the top now, it's only the participant fee that's duplicated at the bottom. I'm going to say there's no fee here either. This is just a free class we're doing. But I'm going to put how many contact hours this particular session is. I want to say it's 3. It's going to start on the 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Click off of it. And it's also going to end on the 22nd at 3 p.m. I have to put in a description. Again, this may be the same thing. Location. If it was this, you could put in what, if this was something internal, going in and putting in what the URL link to the Zoom is going to be for when the person registers for that, it's going to have that. Scroll down and then look at, are there any internal instructors? So this works a lot like tagging somebody in the super delivery. I can come down, I can find the department or the office, and then we have the drop down list. So I'm going to tag Ty into this and then add, and I'm going to put myself in it. And then I want to change it back to Hamilton County. And then I can find Nancy's name and I can add her name in. Linda's name's out. They've already kicked her out.
Kicked me out.
So if you had any external instructors, you can also list those people there too. Now, as far as requirements go, going back up to the top, I've created the overall event details. I've selected my required filters. I've created at least one session. If I want to create a second session, a third, a fourth, a fifth, I would then just click the blue Add Session button.
Click on that.
It
and let's
It would save it.
what options it gives us.
It doesn't let me duplicate it.
No, that's something we probably need to ask, but you could copy and paste. Mhm.
Yeah, I could go up here. I would just have to do each block at a
Yeah.
time.
But that's something we need to ask about.
I'm going to delete the trash can just so we've just got one to keep it simpler. Now, we talked about event questions. This is completely optional. If I click on this to open and expand it, I then have the option to add a question. And then the questions, you have the text that you're going to write. And then the question type, we have three options. We have a free text. You just type whatever you want. Well, I like chocolate, but some days I like strawberry, but most days I like vanilla. Okay. The multiple options, that's where we're going to have where we can come in and put these multiple options in. And we have to list each one of those options.
I knew you were going to type that in. I don't. But when you're doing questions, and this is just like you were able to do before, you have to give an option that everybody can answer. So,
And for each one of those questions, you've got to click on add the option.
yeah.
So you have those, and you need to make sure that everybody can answer the question. Well, you know, maybe you want to put, it doesn't matter, but you know, I don't like ice cream, or I'm lactose intolerant, or, you know, I'm sorry that if you are, because I really like dairy products. But make sure that there's an answer that everybody can answer. Your single options are going to change and be multiple options. You can pick multiples of those, and single options, you can only pick one answer. Single options, I typically think of yes, no. It's either or type things.
And the thing about questions is, I think Ty talked about this. If you are going to, or if you're going to group register people, it's better not to have questions. So only use questions when you really, really need them. There is a place in the, when people register, to put special needs, so it's not necessarily that you have to ask in a question, but if you wanted to do, and he'll show you an example of group registration, I guess.
Yep.
May have already.
I'm
done.
I'm gonna take that out because it makes our group registration part work right now.
Yeah,
I come in and I create my event. It's going to ask me, are we sure? And this is where there's that slot change from the handout that you have. Instead of you having to go search for it and open it again, it's going to come directly to your submit event screen. And it says your event has been created, but it's not been submitted. If your event is created, that means you, the facilitator, can come back and look and find this event, but you're the only one that can see it. Until it is actually submitted, that's what makes it live, and that's what makes it available in all of Super. So it basically is giving you one more last chance. Do I need to change anything? So I could make any changes. If I'm happy with it, I click submit. If I'm not happy with it, click the delete button. I'm okay. I'm going to click submit. It says my training has been submitted. There it is. Again, I have another chance to delete it if I need to. But here I am. I'm ready to go. So in order to come in and to find an event to register people for, different ways to do that. If it's an event and you're the facilitator, or if you're the instructor for it, you can come into the My Event screen and you can come in and list those. So if you created this event, I can click on View Facilitated Events. Again, you have the year, those type things, but they're going to be shown. And I've got 6 pages. They're already in order by date. I can see this is the one that I just created. And once it's created, I have that duplicate. So I don't think we did this last time, but let's go in and duplicate it just to see what happens. Comes back from questions that we've had a couple of times.
yeah, let's try that.
And David, that made it so easy to find your events when you started with ER for the name. That was great.
Yep.
Always do that.
Always start with that county name. And it looks like it creates it
Yeah.
exactly as it is, but it's created a whole new event plus that one session. So we don't see that it's letting us duplicate
A session.
the session. We would have to copy and paste the information.
Make
each
a whole
time,
nother
Which
event.
we can duplicate an event.
We can duplicate an event. Okay, so we need to work on that. So if you were not the facilitator, you would go to search events.
Yeah, if
and
we were
look for it.
not.
So if you create something or the admin creates something and you want to look for it, then you could search events for it. And because it's like the other one, anybody can register people.
But even if you
Totally.
didn't create the event, but you had been listed as an instructor of the event, this sort of keeps you having to search through a lot of things. I can click on my instructed events and I can go in and I can see, okay, well, which ones have I been the instructor? Probably need to do this by date.
Hmm.
1019. Yeah, that's it. No, that's what I've done. This is what's already been people enrolled for. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So if I want to add people,
You weren't instructed on that one. You were just facilitated.
right. So I can come in and I can go to events and I can search events. Again, I can come in and find events.
Oh, and leave that, stop right there. I want to say something. Notice this. Look at the top one, says 2020 Fall MG class. It's a county event. We can see that, but we don't know what county. We have no idea. We have to go into it. Still can't tell. There's Hamilton County. So Tom or Amanda, you need to put the county in front of it. Go back and you can see Greene County had put Greene native plant species, and then there's Greene County co-parenting by Zoom. So when you're putting things into training registration, make sure you put the county first.
So we need to do this with our Eastern Region 1, 2.
Yes.
Here is our maybe that's the one I did before. So here's the one that I just created, ER training session 2 that I've done today. So if I come in and click view register, all your information. If I want to self-register for this, I click self-register, and you want to make sure that the session is clicked. It should do that for you automatically. I think in the transition to this, maybe everything didn't. So just make sure that you have that. And for every time that you register, you're going to have automatically the special needs box is going to come up. So there's no need to add a special needs question. That's already provided for you. I'm going to come in and do a self-register. That's going to put me into it. Ask me, am I sure? And it just goes down and it says, yes, I've been registered for this. And I scroll down and I see my name has now been entered into that. Now I could go back and search for a different session, but let's say that I want to register my coworker for this same session. What department are they in? Eastern Region. Who is it? It's going to be Ty. Make sure the box is checked. Ty doesn't have any special needs. I'm going to register my coworker. And it gives me that information. So now there's 2 people in here. If I want to register a client for anything that's already in Super, go to it, find the individual session or the individual event, come down, and then we say select client. And when we select client, we can either do the import to client list or select from the enrollee list. If we do select from enrollee list, this is your unit people that are enrolled in Super. Now, we don't really have anybody in the Eastern Region, but your list is going to come up. If I pull up the Jefferson County list, it's going to have, you know, a few thousand people in here. I can then come in and do search and type in a first name or a last name and notice how it takes that search and finds it for me. So I can then select the individual. It's added them here. Make sure that the box is checked for the session or the multiple sessions and register the client. Are you sure? Yes. And if I scroll down the list, it's added that person there. Now, if I had those questions, I would then be prompted to answer the questions for that particular client. So I can individual one person at a time. I can also come in and click register client, and I can import it from a client list. This is where the features of enrollment start to come into play. So I have the different types of those listing or those common denominators that someone would be in super enrollment. So we have our activities, our awards, our interest, our club and group. So club and group, that's typically 4-H, FCE, things like that. Interest, those are like those mailing lists. That's my B list. That's my beef list. That's my FCE mailing list, those type thing. Awards and activities typically lean toward the 4-H side of the world. I'm going to pick club and group. When I pick the type, then I come in with what options that I have. I can click one or I can click all of them. I have a search that's here too. I come in and when I select that and do a get list, it's then going to display those people that are in that group, whatever that I've selected for. No, we don't have any data right here at the moment. But that list is going to show up and you're going to have a select all or deselect all. So you can mark them all, you can unmark them all. Anything that you've clicked and have marked, it's going to enroll those people into this session or sessions that you've selected. The same thing like doing an individual, but it's going to take multiples and drop them all in at one time. Boom, you're done. And you can repeat this process to enroll people. You don't have to leave this screen to continue to enroll people in an event. Once you get the event open, you're there and all you're doing is grabbing people from the enrollment module to put them into your event. Are there any questions about that? Okay, once you have people in your event, and I'm just pulling up facilitated events to make it quick and easy for me to find it. I can see that I can come in. There's where I can edit the event. I can now manage event participants. I have my export to delivery up at the top, but it doesn't export things to delivery until I have marked them as attended. And I must have picked the wrong one because I just don't have anybody.
So it's under manage events where that is, where you mark them paid, attended.
There we go.
And export to delivery. So manage events is the really important one.
So that manage events lets me do a few things here. So we've got that export to delivery. Don't worry about that right yet. If you, just like we've had in Classic Super, that you can mark people that they're paid. We can do that. But coming in and doing this mark as attended, I can select everybody has attended, and I don't have to go through, the little boxes going down to do all of that. At this point too, I can still add somebody to register them for the session, and it would drop their name right back in. If somebody came in, Connie called and says, I'm not going to be able to attend the session, just go ahead and take me off. I've got my master list. I can then unregister that person for the session, verify it. Scroll back down, and it's taken that person's name off. I can also export these to Excel. So I have that, list again. I can do this in a couple different ways. But when we have them marked as attended, when we come in and we export this to delivery, I'm not doing this because I don't know what it's going to do to my delivery since I'm the one logged in here. If we were in test, that would be different. But I can then export this to delivery and it's going to send it over. And I think we decided it is going to send it directly to base programs for right now. That would make sense. The last thing, when I come in and I'll look at any of my sessions that I have, we had our manage. That's the one that we're going to use a lot. And then we have the view the roster. That's going to show you just on one page, and I can change how many entries I see. This is the roster. I can also export any of these to Excel to have that printed list that, I can take to the class and mark off with me. I can make this into a sign-in sheet, various options like that. Any questions? I think I've got everything that we talked about.
So Elizabeth,
For
had a
example,
question. Do you wait to export to delivery until all the sessions are complete, or can you do it at any time to make sure you have it in by the lock date for Super? Does it exports by, go back to where the export button is. So that is the session. So it looks like okay, so it's giving you that option. It looks like it's at time, am I right, that this is at the event level?
So that's export to delivery.
But
no,
go,
we only have one session.
okay. Elizabeth, you'll have to, you'll have to, but look,
Oh, yeah, one session. That's right. It is one session. I was reading the wrong question over here. Sorry.
so you do it by session or by session or by event?
I think it is by session as far as I've seen.
Okay. Because we only have one session, so. And then we had a question about the sessions within an event. I think Amanda was asking that. You can do, Jody, yes, you can make mailing labels. You export it to Excel to do it.
Thank you.
You have to have at least one session. You can do multiple sessions. I think you're going to have to figure out what works best for the events that you have to do that. When you think, Ty, because some you might want to do individual sessions, some you might just want to do an event. I think you're going to have to look at it and see what works best.
I think we have some brand new flexibility, and
Yeah.
you take this different directions and see what works best for you, but you can definitely have lots of different sessions for that.
I think the thing that was going to make it, the reason that we're adding sessions is that you might have, it might be an overall event. Let's say it's, mass, like, co-parenting. Okay. So you have co-parenting, and then you have 6 sessions during the year. And,
It's not letting me, it's all of it.
okay, so it's exporting by program, by event.
By event, not
Okay.
by session.
Okay, so that's another question that we need to ask. About,
I've created 2 sessions.
okay, so that's another question we need to ask, is exporting by session. Because if they were doing an event that lasted through the year and then they can't, then what happens to it because of the lock date? And there's a hard lock date in the middle of the year. So that's a question.
Yeah, we were under the impression it was a little different, that we could run like a co-parenting all year long and have multiple sessions, but we may have to think twice about that.
Well, we need to ask if that's something that we can do. So we'll do that and find out. Are you
So Linda, my question about date, and
Yes, Connie.
David may have just done this for an example, but like his event that he just did today was October 22nd, but it had the registration date as October 31st, like 9 days past. And that way, if somebody came and you didn't pre-register, you can register them. But
That's the same as before.
But here was my other question. Then by the 31st, that last day, do I have to go in and click those attended and export it to delivery, or that has nothing to do with it?
No, that's just to add somebody to the sessions
Right.
or event. After the
Don't
event
export.
is over,
Yeah.
the facilitator can still go in and mark people attended.
That's what I thought, but I was just wanting to clarify.
And you have that opportunity. I think Ty mentioned this, was in the past, when the registration date passed and we couldn't change it, then we had to go get John Toman to change it. So they've given us that opportunity to be able to adjust that date.
So we got to the 31st, Connie, and then on the 1st, you said, oh, I forgot to still add somebody. You could change the date to the 1st or the 2nd and still be able to add them.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
more flexibility here. But we will ask about that exporting. And Amanda, you're asking about master gardeners. If they're attending every session, you could just create one event and one session, but you have to have a session for each event.
And the advantage of doing separating each session out is then the instructor can automatically get credit for that in delivery. And so if the agent, in fact, is teaching a couple of those sessions, then that shows up on your taught courses or presentations.
So there's benefits in putting the sessions separately. It may be more work up front, But then after it's over, then that being able to export and that kind of thing. So,
Usually we have more time when we're doing the planning in advance than afterward when things are getting
Yeah.
busy and we're trying to gather the impact and all of that. So if you can put a little extra into the planning, I think it'll be a smoother process when it lands in delivery and everywhere else.
and Elizabeth, thinking about your DPP program, yeah, the sessions, that would be very beneficial to the opportunity to have, be able to duplicate a session. So did you add that to the list, Ty, the questions? If we could be able to duplicate sessions?
Yes, I have that down and actually went ahead and sent an email to Brad mentioning that just in case if he could get back to us before the meeting ended. I thought I'd see what he said.
Yay. So we will let you know information about that. Let's go into, David, go into view my client events just quickly, and then we'll move on. So you can register, click on the it's just another place that you can register and those kinds of things. Same thing. And then how many sessions are permitted? I don't know that there's a limit. Do you, Ty or Nancy? Do y'all know?
I think there's no limit as far as we know.
Yeah. And David, show that book, that help guide, where to find it.
Sure. They just released at the end of last week a guide. And if you go into help, it's going to take you back to Classic Super and make me log in. Okay. And under the help tab, look over on your left for events and then events module handbook. And that opens up a Adobe PDF. You can look at this or you can click on your print, and it's 16 pages. And it just goes through
I'd answer some questions
documentation.
that so you might want to
But
check.
we weren't sure this was going to be ready when we scheduled
Yeah.
this, so we
Yeah.
hadn't really talked about it.
So that's in addition to the PowerPoint you got today. And please note the difference in the font in Classic Super and Super 2.0. It makes me so happy.
Good?
Did we get,
There's a question from Anne regarding trainings beneficial to create groups, even though they would be internal to staff, it looks like. And
you could, Anne, you could enroll them as a group if you wanted to. And you will get, when you register for things, you will get an email. So it will have the information. So you could create a group. That might be, I would think that'd be the easiest, as much as you and Beth do, working with them online and trainings and face-to-face, if and when you're going to do those, I don't know, but seems to me that would be a great group to create in enrollment. Do it that way.
Yeah, that I just thought it would, but I didn't know if you could because they're internal or not.
Oh yeah,
That messed up.
you can do it.
Okay.
And every time that you do something, you're going to get these notifications, emails. So this is, no, not that one, but it shows, okay, that I've been added as the instructor to the group. There was a change. I went in, you know, and I made a change to a session or event that I've already created. And then when you self-register for an event or you register a coworker for an event, they're going to get an email similar to this. It's going to tell them that, yes, you're in this. And it's also going to give you a file that has the calendar information on it. So it's going to have the start and the end date, and it would place this on my Outlook calendar. So again, all of that information, you know, it then populates on your calendar. I know that, you know,
That's a
for
big
some things, I go back in and I'm recreating that event, capturing that information on it. So if you've captured all that information in your event, it can then come over to your calendar.
That was one of the first things that the Super 2.0 committee said, is when we're doing that in this module, there needs to be an email that you can add it on your calendar.
So if you're a facilitator, you're probably going to get a lot of emails, you know, as you start and go through some of this. But again, it's sort of that check and the balances as we go through to make sure that everyone is in the loop. There's just a couple more things, and I think Linda is ready to. Tell us about.
I'm at the end.
At the very end, where we're coming in about our clients.
Is this the start of it? Sorry. I'm just sitting here looking.
Yes,
Okay.
you're ready.
Okay, sorry. We've talked about a lot of this, but we want to reemphasize the fact that you want to go back and mark the people that are participated, mark them that as attended. And then export to delivery, we talked about facilitators can do that, as well as people that are listed as instructors. But you have to go into my events, go to my facilitated event or my instructed events, and do that as well. The other thing I want to mention before we do this is if time is coming to an end for 2020. And one of the things that you need to do, and on the, go ahead and go forward, David. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about under completed events. You want to be checking that in Super 2.0 and making sure that any training or events that you've been a part of that you've registered for are showing up, because they are going to show up in your profile module and your performance appraisal as we're moving into that. And you want to make sure they're there. If you have trainings that that are not showing up there, then you want to contact the facilitator. And it's really your responsibility to make sure your events are under your completed events. Now, remember that this is transitioned. We've gone from Super Classic to Super 2.0. And sometimes facilitators forget. I'm one of them. You know, oh my gosh, I forgot to go back and mark them as attended. But you need to look at those and make sure they're showing up. So just remind you to do that. Then my client events, you click on that and then we go on and you'll see we saw this, but you can edit clients in event, or you can register additional clients in this My Client Events. So we'll go to the next one. And we'll see that here comes up the people that we had registered. This was an event we created when we were working on this. And you have an edit button here. And you click on that and you can unregister these people here. We showed you another way to unregister them in the event, but you can do it here. And unregister for the session or the event. Now, the one thing we've not talked about, and Kim, are you on here about the people for this afternoon? Is that an issue this afternoon as well? I don't know if she may not still be on here. One of the issues that we found this morning was the fact that some of you may have registered for this when it was in Super Classic. And when it was there was no session. It was just an event. So now that it's moved to Super 2.0, there you were not registered, and she could not mark you attended because you weren't registered for the session. So that's, so she's going to work on that. But if you notice that you're not registered, she will be working on that. So you might want to look under your completed events to see if you see this event. But it's that moving, if you registered, we've seen it this morning, it was people who registered this morning. I mean, before it moved into Super 2.0. So just one of those things, timing. So, all right, let's go to questions. And then what we're going to do after questions is we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with the agents. So what questions do you have now? I'm not hearing any. Okay, so what we're going to do, I would suggest you go get the help manual, the events guide, look at it, go through it, play with it, do some events. You can always delete them, so practice and then delete them if needed. That's how you're going to learn. David, Ty, Nancy, and myself are here to help. Let us know, and especially if you see something that's not right, or you have questions, or can it do this, let us know, and then we will compile those and send them to the Super 2.0 gurus that are really awesome, because I had no idea we were going to get this done before the end of 2020. So anything else, Ty? Let's take a break, be back. Those of you who are not agents, you are free to go, or area specialists stay on too, but otherwise we'll be back at what? 3:37.
Sounds good. Thanks everybody for being with us this morning.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
This afternoon.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, and know this is going to be it's going to be good when we get used to it and change over. So let's take a break. 3:37. Be back, and we'll start on plans.
And pause the recording, Ty, please.